My love of the TV series Smallville is well documented, and there's one rewatch podcast that's always at the top of my queue. Zach Moore's Always Hold On to Smallville, which continues with more great Smallville and Superman talk now that their series rewatch has concluded. Listen wherever you get podcasts. If you have children and are looking for a family-friendly store, look no further than Aw Yeah Comics. Visit one of their 3 locations, Harrison, New York, Muncie, Indiana, or Skokie, Illinois, and check out awyeahcomics.com for more. Their name says exactly how they feel about it. Aw yeah! Fat Moose Comics, established in 1982, is New Jersey's best and oldest comic book store. Moose has that rare old-school comic shop feel and camaraderie, yet also remains a welcoming space for new fans. Visit them in Whippany or reach out via the Fat Moose Comics Facebook page. In the 1950s, George Reeves embodied the Man of Steel in Superman's first television adaptation, from its gritty black and white beginnings to the kid-friendly color years. To this day, an entire generation reveres George as their Superman, while for others, the show remains an overlooked, underrated chapter in the character's history. On this podcast, we bring everyone together as we break down each episode of Adventures of Superman, examining it within the context of the series itself, as well as the larger Superman mythology. Welcome to another exciting episode in the Adventures of Superman. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me to discuss Season 4, Episode 12, The Phantom Ring, is returning guest Rich Roney. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Penultimate episode of Season 4.
Yes.
Getting there.
Yes. And listen, you a week ago, we got together and I was able to do The Deadly Rock, which you made some superb comments. It's an episode I enjoy. I enjoyed this episode. And I don't remember watching this episode as a child. So this was novel.
I think this is a bit of a sleeper hit, to be honest. So in this episode, a gang of criminals with the ability to turn invisible stump police and Superman. It aired on June 9th, 1956, written by David Chandler, directed by Phil Ford. Our guest cast includes Peter Bracco as the Spectre, and Paul Burke, Henry Rowland, Lane Bradford, and Ed Hinton as the rest of the gang. And I feel like this is a bit of a sleeper hit because, look, did this knock my socks off? No, not necessarily, but it's a solid episode. I mean, I really feel like it held up. There were some standout moments, especially when Clark is on the plane about to be pushed to his quote unquote death, and is as cool as a cucumber, much to the surprise of the bad guys. And then the big fight, which we'll get to, where Superman is invisible and you have all of these guys like essentially fighting themselves, which I thought was fantastic. And yeah, overall, I just feel like, and this might not be the most glamorous compliment, but it's like a solid, sturdy episode. Like, Amen. I really just felt like it held up.
I agree with you. When I watched this episode, it seemed to me like this was like a perfect radio script or a 1930, late 30s B serial with the Spectre and the gang and the invisibility, right? There were, B serials with invisible enemy agents. This seemed to me like a radio script on screen. I just the pacing and some of the beats, the setup. So like you said, sleeper hit. I enjoyed this immensely.
I agree. It's funny because when we started the color episodes, I've been talking about how I feel like there are different categories. And one of the categories is color episodes that could have a home in the black and white era. And, I think I would include this.
I agree.
In that category. Now, we have some wild science here with this invisibility machine, but not too long ago, we talked about topsy-turvy and that device. And I feel like this is another thing that you could kind of categorize along with the mind machine. Like the science is a bit out there, but it is still grounded in a technological device and there's an explanation for it. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, I feel like this, I would put this in a category like this could stand up against some black and white episodes.
I agree. And to me, like I said, this seemed to be a radio episode.
Yeah.
Because I could just as easily have listened to this and they could have been descriptive enough, but it seems so reminiscent, like I'll say, of 15 or 20 years earlier as a B serial, with the gangster and the Spectre and the, but this is, Anthony, I'm trying to think over our past getting together. We've had a number of crazy scientists.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
what's interesting here, though, we're never given an explanation for how this machine came to be.
Right. Right. Yeah. The Spectre must be, a powerful scientist, because I got the impression he created this, the gang leader.
Guess.
But once again, we've got an invention never seen previously and never seen subsequently.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of that between Perry and uranium-183, the Professor Van Wyck from the other one, Professor Pepperwinkle.
Sure.
Through the time era, we there's one-hit wonders as scientists with machines we never see to come back again.
Very true. All right, so as we get into this here, we open on Clark speaking with Henderson over the phone about a series of robberies that have stumped the police. So, we don't hear Henderson's side of the conversation, but it's very clearly Perry's breathing down Henderson's neck, right, to solve these crimes. I just love, as always, this relationship between the Daily Planet and the police force. It's like, and Clark essentially is saying something to the effect of I'll try to buy you some time. But, it's this notion that, Perry's kind of like chomping at the bit, I guess, to run a story that would be critical of the police for not having caught these guys. But I always get a kick out of that.
Yes.
As Clark goes to leave, Lois and Jim stumble in with a package for Clark, a carrier pigeon with a message and invitation from the Spectre. Though directed not to involve the police, Clark writes his response, then follows the pigeon as Superman. And they make a big deal in this scene and elsewhere about Clark will keep his word that he won't get the police involved. But
he didn't say anything
about Superman. Yeah. I feel like it'd be fair game when you're dealing with criminals, but fair enough. But I thought this was clever, the bit with the carrier pigeon, right? So it's not like they don't disclose the location, right? So
what I found a goof or a mistake, didn't Clark crumple up the paper, but then when they're putting it in the little plastic thing, it's nice and clean and round,
Yeah. I know he did fold it up into a little square. I think. Yeah. At the gang's hideout, the criminals are counting their haul and discussing their plan to make Kent a deal. We see a high-tech contraption in which the users place tokens, then push buttons and pull a lever to become invisible. When radar reveals that both the pigeon and Superman are incoming, the gang becomes invisible and Superman bursts in to find nothing. So, what did you make of this whole, I guess even just kind of from a science aside, but just from a prop standpoint, what did you make of this contraption?
Again, this is what I meant, like a 1939 B serial. This is the sort of thing you might have seen with Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon, and especially the way it hid when they pulled the lever down. What I found interesting was how the Spectre was scared of Clark.
Yes.
There were some lines where he said something like, look, he's nosy and smart, or something like that.
It's not, the police are breathing down our necks.
It's Kent we got to worry about, right? Yeah. And he was more alarmed about Kent than Superman.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, the setup, sending the pigeon, it's the message for Kent to try to cut him in on this, to try to make him a deal. Then later we'll get to the point where they try to knock Kent off. But yeah, it's all about Clark.
And even the line, I just checked, it was, hey, we got to watch out for him. He's nosy and smart.
Yeah.
So they were intimidated. This is a forceful, they were trying to seduce him to their side or buy him off.
Yeah, it was cool. Next, Clark and Henderson confer, realizing that the obvious answer, invisibility, is also impossible. When a jewelry store is inexplicably robbed, Clark becomes more convinced of his invisible man theory, butting heads with a skeptical Bill. This is the part of the episode that I felt kind of just didn't go anywhere, because there's never any pay. We don't hear Bill in that opening scene, but the show does open with Henderson on the phone, right? There's this discussion about trying to catch these guys. Then at the midpoint here, we have this bit where Clark has this theory. Henderson is very skeptical, right? And they're a bit at odds over it. And then that's it for Henderson. And it's not Henderson's episode, but I just kind of felt like, all right, if we're going to invest in kind of them being this buddy detective team, it's all right, what's the payoff to this?
We've seen that other times, like when they went out to California. There's other episodes where Clark and Henderson partnered. So that was kind of like a something that started and then was dropped.
Yeah. Just as a side note, the idea of like invisible criminals, it's a staple, I think, across a lot of shows. But even just in the realm of Superman stories, there was a Lois and Clark episode with an invisible thief. Smallville had meteor freaks who could turn invisible. So a bit of a tradition here.
See, I in retrospect, I forget how they explained it.
Well, it's like with radar. It's like I think the machine is emanating some sort of radar type signal that when it bounces off that coin that they have, that's what creates this invisibility effect.
See, I would have thought with Clark's supervision. I'm still trying to process this. I know it really would have destroyed the story.
Well, you know what? Here's what I was thinking, though. I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, not to pick this apart, but not even his vision powers, but his super hearing. It's like he would hear them.
Good point. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about. He would hear their heartbeats or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the wrestling thing he could hear through brick walls.
Exactly. Well, and even in the Unlucky Number episode, when he's standing outside the diner and it seems like he's listening in on it. So, yeah, I feel like that.
Or even way back with Clark Kent Outlaw, the tumblers in the safe.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So
no, I didn't think about that. I was thinking more like with his super eyesight, supervision, I thought he should be able to kind of.
Okay, in fairness, though, I feel like it's most egregious, or I guess when I had the thought, was in that early scene when he bursts through after he follows the pigeon. But at that point, it's like he hasn't yet cultivated this invisibility theory. So he wouldn't be thinking that. It just looks like they cleared out.
Excellent
All right, we solved that.
Excellent point.
The gang plans to bump off Clark and make it look like an accident. One of the guys, while invisible, takes Lois and Jimmy hostage. What'd you think of that scene in the office where we just see the gun and then it goes back in the pocket?
I thought it was filler. I thought it was like, okay, we're going to do all our tropes with an invisibility episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I guess they had to take Lois and Jimmy captive so that forces Clark to have to follow their instructions. But yeah, it just felt a bit perfunctory. Clark receives a note directing him to pilot a plane because they know he has his pilot's license. Although that's been established, so that tracks. In the sky, two of the gang members reveal themselves in the row behind Clark, and a surprisingly calm Clark asks about the operation before being thrown from the plane. And one of them even remarks about that.
Boy, he's cool. This guy's got nerve,
Yeah, that was great. Like that I thought was fantastic. And then the guy behind him knocks him out, and then for the audience's benefit, Clark looks up and then pretends he's unconscious. Yeah. And they push him out of the plane. Clark lands. Oh, that surprised me. Because, on this show, there are instances where as Clark, obviously we see him use his X-ray vision or his super hearing, right? Or maybe he'll bend something. But by and large, and we've talked about this, like in most instances, especially flying, it's always in that Superman costume. So I was really expecting after they pushed him out that we were going to just see Superman land, or we were just going to see Superman in the sky. But he lands as Clark and then changes.
Yeah.
Just stood out to me.
Yeah.
So he changes to Superman and stops one of the members right before another robbery. He takes the coin and becomes invisible himself, battling the rest of the gang at the hideout. Yeah, like just from a stunt perspective, what did you think of this?
It was refreshing.
Yeah.
It was refreshing, and it hit the bullseye with the theme and this story, right? The invisibility. I enjoyed it.
Well, it's funny. We talk all the time, obviously, about how in this era he can't throw punches. But it's like here, he did. You just didn't see them.
Yeah.
But like this was an actual battle.
Kudos to all those actors.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
With the choreography and acting as though they were getting punched and hit and thrown around.
Yeah, that was well choreographed. Those actors committed to it. No, that was really, really cool. When Lois asks about Clark, Superman says he was able to save the reporter from the fall and that he took it all right for Clark. Got to knock his civilian identity there. But that's the episode.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was a good one.
Like you said, you used a perfect adjective, kind of a sleeper hit, right?
Yeah, I don't feel like this is one that often... Look, like last time we talked about Deadly Rock, I feel like that one comes up a lot. I felt like that had more shortcomings. This is one that maybe gets a little lost in the shuffle, but this is solid.
I agree.
All right, so
agree.
on a scale of 1 to 5, Great Caesar's Ghost, how many are we giving this one?
4.
Me too. I'm giving this. I'm tempted to even go higher, but like I said, I don't know that it doesn't. It doesn't quite rise to like a Clark Kent Outlaw for me, where there was more of that personal, angle to it. But I'm going 4, like a really, really solid.
Solid 4. A solid 4. I didn't see enough to make it 4.5. And kind of like the 5s in my mind are Panic in the Sky and The Face and the Voice. But this was solid. I mean, there's other episodes I've watched where I get bored and I think, okay, I got to kill 3 or 4 minutes to the next change of scene. No, this held my interest. Again, it seemed like a radio thing because the Spectre. How many times have we heard a bad guy have that sort of name, that appellation?
Yep.
So I was very pleased with this one. I put it right up there with The Deadly Rock. They had a couple of good ones towards the end of this fourth season.
Yeah. Well, we also have the Jolly Roger. So that's coming up next week, our season. We might feel differently about that one, but we'll get there. So thank you, as always, for joining me. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. Make sure you come back next week for the season 4 finale. Until then, as always, remember, only Superman can do super things. Single Bound is a new podcast hosted by married couple Amy and Logan as they review single issues of comics. And if the title makes you think of Superman, you're not alone, as the Man of Steel is a regular topic of discussion. Listen and subscribe to Single Bound on Spotify and YouTube. Ever wonder what would happen if a person who knew barely anything about comics decided to absorb hundreds of Superman stories? Robbo is that kind of person, and that's exactly what he's doing on a new show called This Podcast Will Never Die. Listen and subscribe today. Whether you're an independent filmmaker or you just love movies, don't miss these New Jersey film festivals. Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, Hang On to Your Shorts in Asbury Park, and Round Reel in Bloomfield. Submission information for filmmakers can be found at filmfreeway.com. This podcast is an affiliate of BCW Supplies. The next time you need to restock on comic book bags, boards, boxes, and more, be sure to use promo code FSP to save 10% on your order. That's FSP for Flat Squirrel Productions. It helps support the show too. Thank you. Another way to support the show and receive exclusive content, including the spin-off podcast Beyond Metropolis, is by becoming a member at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. My sincere thanks to all patrons. Please subscribe, rate, and review today via your podcast platform of choice, and continue the conversation by joining us on social media. Flat Squirrel Podcasts is also home to Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey, a long-running weekly series mining Superman's vast mythology across time and media. Subscribe today. Another exciting episode is a Flat Squirrel production. Key art by Greg Schiegel and theme music by Dan Pritchard.